Kyle Kulinski decided to go after Ben Shapiro because Ben Shapiro is a massive doofus, to say the least. So he is on the train of going after Ilhan Omar, despite him claiming a victim complex 24/7 and being all about, against liberals supposedly using all these victim complexes by, the oppression Olympics or whatever the fuck they like to call it. But it's really embarrassing because, and I've noted this before in other videos that I've made. I literally made videos dedicated to this where he just spams the anti-Semite button. So while he's whining and moaning about how other people on the left are supposedly using these victim complexes, when really he's using the biggest victim complex there is. That is what he's doing. So it's that, as well as, and I'm surprised about this, Ben Shapiro legitimately thinks that money in politics is not a problem. Politicians are not bought out by anything, which is absolutely hilarious. But anyways, Kyle is going to absolutely railroad this dude. I'm going to show you guys a couple clips of that, and then we're going to come back and talk about it.
Here's Ben Shapiro in a totally unhinged and insanely moronic rant on this front. Take a look.
The first tweet was in response to Glenn Greenwald, who himself is a rabid anti-Israel, anti-Semite. He's a self-hating Jew. He wrote, GOP leader Kevin McCarthy threatens punishment for Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib over their criticisms of Israel. It's stunning how much time U.S. political leaders spend defending a foreign nation, even if it means attacking free speech rights of Americans. Nobody is attacking the free speech rights of Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. They're sitting in Congress. They have not had their free speech rights violated. And yet, there's Glenn Greenwald suggesting that all of these Republicans are doing something deeply wrong by mentioning Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, both of whom happen to be radical anti-Semites. So Ilhan Omar tweeted out, quote, "It's all about the Benjamins, baby," with a little music symbol. Now, as a Jew, one of the oft-used anti-Semitic tropes, this has been true for thousands of years, is that the Jews control the monetary systems with their shekels, that the Jews are an evil, nefarious force behind world events spreading around money, and that the reason that people support the Jews is because they've been corrupted by the Jew gold. It's been the Jew gold behind Republican support for the state of Israel, which, of course, is a complete lie. The vast majority of Americans support Israel and support Jews because they're not anti-Semitic and because they recognize that Israel is fighting against some of the worst people on planet Earth. And for a lot of Democrats, apparently, Ilhan Omar, though, suggests that the reason Republicans support Israel is because they're being paid off by the Jew gold. The reason that AIPAC gives money, that they lobby, the reason that they lobby politicians is for a particular purpose. But if you think that their lobbying, number one, is restricted to people who are supremely pro-Israel, that is not true. They had Barack Obama speak at the AIPAC conference controversially. They had Joe Biden speak at the AIPAC conference controversially. The only person I'm aware who has not been able to speak at the AIPAC conference was Ron Paul. So they allow pretty much everybody to speak at the AIPAC conference. AIPAC does not own the United States Congress by dint of paying people. This is sort of a similar trope to the idea that people in America are pro-gun because the NRA is signing them checks. Except now it's the nefarious Jews spending their shekels, the shekel masters spending their shekels, trying to convince Republican Congress people. Now, I have to mention, one of the weird things about this particular notion is the idea that Congress people are able to be bought and paid for. If that were the case, wouldn't you think that AIPAC would just ratchet up its spending and buy a bunch of Democrats? Why is it that everybody who's always worried about campaign spending is those people are themselves immune to such corruption? I remember asking this about John McCain when John McCain was talking about campaign finance reform. Oh, there's too much money in politics. People are buying politicians. Weird, John McCain. You haven't been bought. So why is it that you think everybody around you has been bought, but you have not been bought? There are certain rare instances in which Congress people are actually corrupt and take money from particular lobbies to change their views. That's pretty rare. Most people who are picking up support are picking up support because they pre-held those views.
That is literally the dumbest rant on politics I've ever heard in my life. That is the most naive horseshit I've ever heard in my life. In order to try to bend over backwards to make the case that, no, Ilhan Omar is an anti-Semite, yeah, that's what it is, he ends up arguing that Congress is not corrupt. You heard him say it right there at the end. You said, well, it's rare that a congressperson is corrupt. The idea that you can buy Congress people? Crazy! Alex Jones! Simple points. You do know that Congress's approval rating oscillates between like 9% and 21%, right? And that's literally even after you just elect them. You just elect them. You come back like a month later and you poll people. hey, what do you think of Congress? The approval rating will fall between 9% and 21%. It's regularly in the teens. Why? Why is that? In what's supposed to be a constitutional republic and a representative democracy. Why is that? The answer is very simple. Everybody knows they're always voting for the lesser of two evils. And you're choosing between one set of special interests or another set of special interests when you vote for the Republicans or the Democrats. Okay, now beyond that, it's not my opinion, it's a fact. There was a Princeton political science study that came out a few years back, which very simply stated the U.S. functionally is an oligarchy. It's not a democracy. Over 90% of the time, the person who raises the most money ends up winning. And in order to raise the most money in this system, you need to go to billionaires, you need to go to millionaires, you need to go to corporations and special interests. And you raise money from them, you make promises to them, and so you end up doing their bidding. That's exactly what this study laid out. It said, if you look at the opinions of the top 1% and corporations, you look at the things that are their priorities, Congress almost always is implementing policies and passing laws that help that constituency. But they never are passing laws which the overwhelming majority of the American people support. When it comes to universal background checks, over 90% of the American people want that. We haven't gotten it. Why? Gun lobby money funds the Republican Party. The Republican Party blocks any and all gun legislation. I like how he said at one point, well, you know, you got AIPAC and you got some of these donors. They're doling out money for a specific purpose. Go back and watch his clip again. You'll hear him say it in the middle. He's talking about like, it's not corruption, and you can't buy politicians. And, you know, you got these pro-Israel donors, and they're doling out money for a specific purpose. Yeah, what purpose? Pro-Israel purpose. Did you know Sheldon Adelson, in one election cycle alone in 2012, spent over $90 million trying to get Republicans elected? Ben Shapiro, are you going to say to everybody with a straight face that, oh, no, he's just giving them that money because he agrees on abortion? It's all about just being pro-Israel. That's why they had Obama and Biden speak. They're massively pro-Israel, you dipshit! God damn it. And then, finally, he says, well, Glenn Greenwald is a rabid anti-Semite, self-hating Jew. I love this because this is from the same crowd of people who have made it one of their main points after Trump got elected to bend over backwards and say, you know what the problem is with these left-wingers? They're false cries of bigotry. Everybody's a racist. Everybody's a misogynist. Everybody's a xenophobe. Everybody's a bigot, you know? And what's wrong with them? Why do they always, when they don't have an argument, they just jump to name-calling and they do these false cries of bigotry? The exact fucking thing he accuses left-wingers of doing is what he's doing right here. And by the way, you guys know me. I make sure that whenever I make an accusation like that, I try to have an abundance of evidence before.
Okay, so Ben Shapiro calling Glenn Greenwald a self-hating Jew, that's a really big indictment to make on somebody. You know, like it really takes a lot to truly be someone, to be able to levy a charge like that against someone, to call someone a self-hating Jew and a rabid anti-Semite. That's a really harsh and heavy charge to put against someone. And so you've got to back that with evidence. So when you say that about Glenn Greenwald and you don't actually provide any evidence for why, you're making yourself look like a clown. And this guy called Rahm Emanuel, who's part of the Obama admin. He had called, or Rahm Emanuel was one of the associates. He might not have been the Obama admin, I forgot. But he called him a capo because basically he's trying to say that, you know, he's like one of the Jews who turned against him and, you know, was helping against them. So it's like, holy shit, dude. And we've all seen the clip of him on Megyn Kelly's show, where even Megyn Kelly's repelled by the disgusting shit that is being said by Ben Shapiro, where he calls Obama a Jew-hating president when Obama didn't do shit to buck Israel. He kept funding him. He didn't do anything to buck him at all. All that really ended up happening was literally at the end, he abstained. All he did was abstain from a resolution. All this resolution did, by the way, it didn't actually have any implications. All it did was is it just says, we condemn Israeli illegal settlements. That type of resolution does nothing except for make a statement from the United Nations saying, we condemn it. They didn't even vote for it, dude. They're just part of, and I believe this has to be a Security Council. I can't remember which one it was, but if they vote no, it vetoes. So, because they're part of the P5. So they didn't even vote yes. They just abstained. And that was all they did. That was it. And he has the gall to call him a Jew-hating president or whatever the fuck. It's insane, dude. And the fact that you can, at the same time as calling Glenn Greenwald a self-hating Jew, be, going after the left for supposedly having all these fake victim complexes is unbelievable. And then B, levying these charges against people in such abundance with such a lack of actual evidence is absolutely insane, dude. And this is one of the biggest jokes ever. By the way, if you remember when he got into a beef with Patton Oswalt on Twitter that one time, Patton Oswalt compared him to Irving Kristol, said that, like, he loves Irving Kristol or something like that, because I guess he's the father of neoconservatism, but he's Jewish. And so Ben Shapiro was like, oh, you mentioned both of our names because we're both Jewish. It's like, no, you fucking idiot. And I think Patton made a really good joke. I forgot exactly what it was, but it was pretty hilarious. He got him pretty good, saying basically like, oh, if you think that anti-Semite means stupid or something, you must be really dumb. He got him really good. But anyways, the point here being is, he is a massive, massive hypocrite on this. And also, dude, like, let's just call this what it is. This is disgusting behavior, okay? Because when you're out there making these kinds of crazy charges, like saying someone's a self-hating Jew without any actual evidence. And by the way, and then he goes on to say, no one's threatening their free speech rights. Well, first of all, the principle of free speech kind of is, because there are people on your side who are calling for her to be expelled from Congress, and to be censored. So you're talking about, yeah, in principle, you kind of are. I mean, she could still say it in public, but that's still a certain degree of like deplatforming, essentially. And you want her off of the the committee that she's on, the foreign committee that she's on. So in the principle of it, you are actually trying to do that. But also, he doesn't even mention the anti-BDS bill. Like, this is direct. This is supposed to be the issue that Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, Jordan Peterson, and all those other, free speech cucks are supposed to be all about coming out against. And Kyle cites it there. He goes, dude, when Hurricane Harvey hit in Texas, there were people who had to sign saying that they won't boycott Israel in order to receive relief. That is insane, dude. Just imagine getting a question about a serious political thing in any other way, any other political question. Do you support, Medicare for all, or do you promise to boycott, Saudi Arabia or Canada or whatever the fuck, dude? You can't do that. You can't do that kind of stuff. You can't have federal contracts asking political questions like that, because that is a clear violation of the First Amendment and free speech. And so when you are, when you're doing something like that, it's insane. You're a joke. And then the money in politics thing, is that even like an argument to be taken seriously? What do you mean they're not bought out? Even, especially if John McCain is, doing that means something. Okay, if he's calling out money in politics, and all this money in politics, that it's a really, really problematic. But I just don't understand, like, how you could not see, like, that seems to me to be some sort of a privilege. I don't even know what kind of a privilege that would be, but how the fuck could you not see how our politicians are bought out? So, for example, like, Cory Booker, remember when he randomly voted against the amendment that Bernie Sanders proposed to allow drugs to be imported from other nations like Canada, because they pay like 2 or 3 times more than they do for prescription drugs, and he just randomly voted against it for no apparent reason. And you go into Open Secrets and look at all of the shit that he got. The money he got from the pharma industry was massive. And so you're telling me that the reason why he did that had nothing to do with that. Also, all you have to do is look at all of the lobbying money that is poured into the system, and then the question you have to ask yourself is, what is the reason that they do that? Is the reason that they do that just because they're just doing it for fun? They don't have a pastime. I believe that pro-Israel lobbying industry just poured in like $14 million in the past election cycle. And dude, the lobbying is huge everywhere. Okay, you're talking about the NRA, you're talking about AIPAC, you're talking about a bunch of different things. Okay, that AIPAC heavily affects the Democrats as well. There were a bunch of Democrats who just voted for that bill in the Senate. I think it was like 23 Democrats. Klobuchar voted for it. So this is, I don't even know how to even like respond to something that stupid. The idea that it's just not happening. And the obvious way to point this out is there are clear issues where the American people are in massive agreement, but some reason they never get through. They're not getting through. And Kyle cites those in his videos. He talks about universal background checks. He talks about how marijuana legalization is at, 62%. But how could you look at that and be like, yo, dog, nah, fam, money in politics ain't a problem. We're not an oligarchy. We're not like where we have these issues where there's massive, massive consensus amongst the American people. And then somehow you're going to have representatives consistently voting against those specific things. That doesn't make any sense. That's a claim where it's so dumb and stupid. It's almost like impossible to respond to, honestly. And he does that type of shit a lot. He says some really stupid stuff very often. But I'm glad that Kyle called him out on this. Ben Shapiro says a lot of vitriolically disgusting shit, like calling people self-hating Jews, which is really disgusting when it's not true. Dude, to levy that kind of a charge at somebody, you better come with some evidence, dog. If you don't come with evidence, dude, you are a clown. You are a clown face. That's what you are, dude. You are a massive, massive clown.